Our next speaker is going to be Terry Schilling. He's the political director of American Principles in Action. Again, another guy who doesn't just go to meetings, listen to speakers, and then go home. He actually does stuff. And that's important if this Tea Party movement is going to grow and we're going to succeed. Terry's a native of Geneseo. Did I say that right? Thank you. I practiced that all night last night. Geneseo, Illinois, and he is a graduate of the Franciscan University of Steubenville, where he studied political science. Terry is responsible for developing and implementing the organization's political strategy at both the state and the federal level. In the past, Terry has worked in communications, development, grassroots, and management positions with Rep. Chris Smith of New Jersey, Senator Sam Brownback, as well as various other state and local candidates. Before joining the team of APIA, Terry managed his father's race for Congress in Illinois, running against a 30-year entrenched incumbent on a shoestring budget in 2010. Terry led the Bobby Schilling for Congress campaign to a 10-point victory in Illinois. That deserves applause. Why didn't you guys applaud for that? This is an audience participation rally. I'm expecting a lot more from you guys. During college, Terry served as vice president of his student government association and is the director of grassroots operations for college Republicans. Let's give it up for a big Tea Party welcome to Terry Schilling.
Hi everyone. Like Tom said, my name's Terry, and I'm from Washington, and I'm here to help. In all honesty, I work for this group. We were founded 5 years ago. It's called the American Principles in Action. And we're not just a think tank. We're an action-oriented group that works with activists on the ground, moms and dads, people who haven't typically been involved politically before. And we train them, we give them the necessary tools and resources that they need to win at the state legislatures and their local government to reclaim their government back for them and their children. So we've been fighting these special interests who have basically been waging war on the founding principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for the past 5 years. We've been fighting against Common Core since its inception, and we've been leading that fight from day one. All that we seek to do is this. It's very simple. We want to give moms and dads, local teachers, the knowledge, the know-how, and the tools that they have or that they need to fight Common Core in their state legislators or state legislatures. Before working at APIA, I didn't know what Common Core was. I know that I had heard Arnie Duncan, the Secretary of Education, talking about rigorous, uniform, internationally benchmarked standards that were being led by the states. They were also promising not to lower the expectations of students. It seemed like they were saying, if you like your education standards, you can keep your education standards. And that got me thinking. Usually when Washington says something, they mean the exact opposite. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your health care, you can keep your health care. Everyone ever heard of the Affordable Care Act? So I started looking into it, and I found out that almost all of this information was false. These standards were internationally benchmarked. They weren't rigorous. Well, they were rigorous if you consider confusing standards that don't make any sense are rigorous. They weren't state-led. That is, unless you count special interests as being states. The more I learned about the Common Core, the more my heart trembled for my country and my 2 daughters. I learned that there were massive privacy issues with the Common Core, and that my children's data would be shared with corporations across the country. I also learned that Common Core wasn't an education model, it was a workforce development model that sought to turn our children into cogs in a machine. At what point did our children become human capital? I thought this was America. and that the point of our education system was to mold our children into critical thinkers, productive, moral, ethical, and faithful citizen leaders. How could this have happened all so quickly? You know what the answer is? Because they cut parents, teachers, and in some cases, state legislators and governors out of the picture. They use bureaucrats and lobbyists to get this done. So what does Common Core actually do? Well, let's start with the math standards. Common Core relies on fuzzy math. It only takes students to Algebra 2 by the time they graduate high school, when before students could get to calculus, which is a necessary requirement for math-related college fields. Dr. James Milgram, who was the only mathematician on the Common Core Validation Committee, rejected the math standards. You know why? Because the Common Core math standards put students 2 years behind their peers internationally by the 8th grade. If you like your math standards, you can keep your math standards. When it comes to education, Dr. Sandra Stotsky, who's by far the most well-respected authority on English language arts, criticized the English standards as being empty skill sets that weaken the basis of literary and cultural knowledge needed for authentic college coursework. Why did Sandra Stotsky say this? Because instead of relying on classical literature, Common Core focuses on informational texts. That informational text might sound great, but in fact, informational text is the most basic form of written language. It requires little to no critical thinking, and it's written for the most basic of audiences. Why should we be concerned about getting rid of classic literature and relying on informational text? Not only because classic literature has been the most proven form of education for developing truly literate students, but it's because in classic literature, students learn about good and evil, joy and grief, the nature of humanity in itself. Beyond all that, it's classic literature that catches students' interest in reading and writing. No one's going to fall in love with reading through informational texts like instruction manuals. If you like your English standards, you can keep your English standards. But I want to talk about something that truly saddens my heart, and it's right here in Massachusetts, in the story of your education system. In 1993, the Massachusetts miracle began. Republicans and Democrats sat down together to get education right. They figured out that in order to get the education system right, they needed an emphasis on classical literature, such as Moby Dick, Huck Finn, The Scarlet Letter, and To Kill a Mockingbird. And in regard to math standards, they needed to focus on the traditional math standards, not fuzzy math fads. The results that followed after this were tremendous. The students in Massachusetts performance levels went through the roof across all demographics. Massachusetts scored first in every category in the National Assessment Test. No state has ever done that before. Massachusetts also entered into the International Math Assessment Test, known as TIMSS, as its own country. And it scored in the top 10, up there with countries like Singapore. You guys had a great thing going for you. But then, it gets really sad. Instead of sticking with this Ferrari of education standards, Massachusetts opted into the Common Core in 2010 as a favor to President Obama from Governor Deval Patrick. Thank you, yes. If the Massachusetts Miracle Standards were a Ferrari, your state traded that in for a 1985 Yugo. The special interests have declared war on our children, our future, and the founding principles that made this country great. And I want to be really clear. This wasn't Democrats or Republicans. This was special interests in both parties, waging war on our children to turn them into cogs in the machine. Who here remembers Andrew Breitbart? Everyone? If you don't remember Andrew Breitbart or know who he is, I want you to watch a movie called Hating Breitbart. It's one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. Andrew Breitbart was an American hero. He passed away 2 years ago. And this guy exposed Acorn, voter fraud, and corruption all across the country. Some people would actually say that he helped expose Anthony Weiner, but I think he did a good job exposing himself. But Andrew Breitbart once said in an interview, "I didn't start this war. Rather, they declared war on me. I'm at war with you because you declared war on me. It's that simple." If we're going to provide a better future and defend our Constitution, we're going to need to go to war with these special interests that seek to destroy our country. And you can join in that fight. You can fight this war by doing a couple things. There's a collaborative website with groups across the country called truthinamericaneducation.com. Go there, sign up. We've got tons of resources there available where you can learn about the Common Core, set up town meetings, talk to your local school boards, get them involved. You can go to fightcommoncore.com and get updates about the Common Core in your state specifically. So we all need to join in this fight this war, and let's win it. So thank you guys, and God bless America.
Thank you, Terry.